Hello everybody and welcome back to J Penny Reviews. Here only my opinion is correct. Everyone else is wrong, and if you disagree with me, feel free to comment down below so we can duke it out like real men should. Fantastic Four First Steps is finally here after 3 god-awful movies. I am so happy to say we finally got a good movie. And I'm not one to say the MCU is finally saved, but this year is starting to convince me that they've at least finally found the right path. Captain America 4 was a bad movie, but you can tell what direction they were pointing us in, and Thunderbolts was really good and finally felt like we were building to something. And now this movie is very good, and they're moving towards that same direction. The more I think about it, the more I love this movie. The cast is amazing. I want to say perfect, but there are a few nitpicks I have. The action is good, and good God, can these actors act their asses off. And probably the best part about this movie is it completely stands alone. This happens in a separate universe, which allows for a fabulous world design and a retro 60s vibe. So none of the MCU weighs this movie down. No preparation, no homework, just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. This is a movie I really don't want to spoil, so go check it out in theaters, and for those of you who've seen it or just don't care, let's talk spoilers. This movie is about Galactus trying to devour Earth 828. The Fantastic Four track Galactus down and try to barter with him, but Sue Storm is pregnant and Galactus wants their child. Why, you may ask? Because their child is Franklin Richards, who is one of the most powerful characters to ever exist in Marvel Comics, period. He has the power to create life, and Galactus wants him so he can rid himself of his curse of insatiable hunger for planets. Sue Storm, naturally being a protective mother, says fuck no, and the Fantastic Four have to figure out how to stop Galactus from eating their world and keep Franklin safe. Now, this was absolutely something I thought I could predict. Silly me for thinking that. I honestly thought this movie was going to end with Galactus destroying the Earth, and the Fantastic Four would have to evacuate to Earth 616 because of the ending to Thunderbolts. But no, the Fantastic Four are actually able to save their Earth and Franklin by sending Galactus to the edge of space, so he is so far from Earth he likely can't return in their lifetime. I really like the way that this was handled. One of my major gripes with Galactus in Rise of the Silver Surfer was that he just gets killed, which ruins the whole point of Galactus being the ultimate counter to growing life in the universe. And while I do think a more powerful ending would have been Galactus devouring Earth and in some way delivering the message that you can't stop nature, this movie is far from bad by not doing that. In fact, nature has nothing to do with the themes or message. This is just a movie about never abandoning family, which I also really love. Sometimes the simplest is just the most effective, and this movie is basically a better version of Eternals. Now, a major point of contention for many fans was the casting and how these members of the Fantastic Four would be portrayed. And I'm very happy to say, anyone who leaves this movie saying the cast was bad or the characters were portrayed poorly or with ill intent is either a complete imbecile or trying to sell you something. Each member of the Fantastic Four was done wonderfully. Sue Storm being the highlight, she's just a loving wife and mother. Her entire mission is keeping her son safe. There's mentions that she's a very great diplomat, and she is by far the most powerful member of the Fantastic Four, but that is far from the point of the movie. Sue Storm does get the most development, which I really appreciate, since in 3 movies they couldn't be bothered to do the bare minimum with her, and the focus usually went to The Thing or Mr. Fantastic. Johnny is absolutely still a playboy. I think a fair critique of the movie is that we're just told he's a playboy and never shown him in situations where he has the opportunity to behave as such. But this movie also shows his intelligent side. People may forget because Chris Evans played a very funny caricature of Johnny Storm, but Johnny is also very smart and can be emotionally intelligent. He just has a more out there personality. This movie shows a lot more of that side, which I really appreciated. The Thing is by far the most harmless. we really do get the least of him, and that's probably because this isn't an origin story, and most of the thing's problems come from self-acceptance through his new condition, and we're tossed 4 years into the careers of the Fantastic Four, so it makes sense for him to be past all this. He's still a great character, and this is by all means the Thing from the comics, but he does take a backseat. Now for the most contentious of the entire cast. Reed Richards was perfect. Pedro Pascal may be cast way too often, but goddamn can he deliver. This guy is such a good actor, and he does a great job at playing this hyper-intelligent character with the weight of the entire world on his shoulders. He delivers with the emotion, and he does a great job at playing this guy who thinks more logically more often than he does emotionally. And everyone has such a great rapport with each other. I'd say Reed and Johnny have the weakest dynamic, but Johnny and Ben are so fun together, and Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Kirby have such great chemistry. And Galactus was perfect. This guy is horrifying. The scene in space where the Fantastic Four first meet him does a phenomenal job at displaying the sheer scope of him. The fact that they turn up on a planet and see this giant machine gobble it up, and you feel the shock that they feel, and we haven't seen Galactus, just his ship. When the Fantastic Four finally speak with him, the Thing is smaller than Galactus's pupil. It's incredible. They did such a great job with him. The action in this movie is also really good. We don't get a lot, but this movie is less than 2 hours long. It doesn't waste a single second, and the action is placed in the middle and the end of the movie, so we don't go for an hour and a half to 2 hours with no action. The Silver Surfer chase through space was so cool. Sue is going into labor, Ben is trying to stay ahead while Johnny has to shoot a gun weirdly because they're going so fast the laser is looping. It's so good. And the Galactus fight in New York was really cool. The Fantastic Four just tackle him one-on-one, but there were a few great moments. Seeing Galactus throw the Thing into space and Johnny having to grab him and bring him back down so fast they're able to hit Galactus hard enough to move him. Absolute perfection. And seeing the full scope of Sue's powers was really cool. I do find it a tad unrealistic that she was able to do that much to Galactus, but I'm willing to accept it because Galactus had her baby, and she died in the process just from overexertion. And Sue's death was done so well. Seeing Reed and Johnny's reaction to this was gut-wrenching. Now another nitpick here, telling us that she was in Doomsday told us she would survive, which kind of killed the moment, but man was it done so well. And Franklin brings her back to life because his power is to create life, obviously. Anyone who knows anything about the lore would have seen that coming a mile away. Anywho, Galactus is pushed through the portal with aid from Silver Surfer and the Earth is saved. Yeah, Silver Surfer was probably the weakest character in the movie. They really just used her to develop Johnny, which I'm okay with. It would have been nice to see more from her, but it was cool to see Johnny learn her language and discover her real name. I also don't think this is the permanent Silver Surfer. If this is, then I will be much more critical of this, but for now I'm willing to give this movie the benefit of the doubt. One thing I will praise this movie for regarding Silver Surfer is this movie actually properly addresses the fact that this person is forced to assist in the death of billions to trillions of people to spare one planet. And you know what? She can't just kill Galactus. Galactus makes it very clear who's in charge. This is basic shit I normally wouldn't praise, but the bar is deep in the 7th layer of hell for these movies. And aesthetically, this movie is just gorgeous. The retro 60s look is so cool and fresh, this movie just oozes personality. And the CGI looks incredible 98% of the time. Yeah, there were maybe 3 moments I noticed, but if that's the price for the rest of the movie to pop the fuck off and give us these wallpaper-worthy shots, then it was well worth it. Oh, and the post-credit scene is a must-watch. It is very brief, but this is the first official look at Doctor Doom in Avengers Doomsday. We tune in 4 years later, and Sue Storm is reading with Franklin. When she re-enters the room, a man in a green cape with a hood up and a metal mask in his left hand is playing with Franklin. Now, I have some thoughts on this. This movie teased us all throughout with Doom by showing us Latveria is a real place and its leader is not showing up to group meetings. And with the post-credit scene very clearly hiding his face and saying we'll catch up next in Doomsday, this tells me that this is RDJ's Doctor Doom, which all but confirms that RDJ is playing the Latvian dictator Victor Von Doom, not Tony Stark, who takes the mantle of Doom. And I don't know how to feel about this. I don't want to form my opinion quite yet because I'm just unbelievably curious about what they're really doing with Doctor Doom. I do want him to be the main villain of a Fantastic Four movie eventually, and I don't want it to be RDJ's Doctor Doom right now, but if I'm blown away by this character, then I could accept it. All that to say, it's really nothing more than a tease. We know nothing, and will likely know nothing until a set photo leaks, or more likely, the official trailer releases sometime late this year, early next year. For characters, this movie gets an 8.5 out of 10. The main characters were all great to amazing. The villains were really good, kind of lacking in character, but it made up in sheer threat and scale. For story, this movie gets a 9.5 out of 10. There aren't really any plot holes that I can think of. This movie doesn't waste a single second. The themes are simple yet effective, and probably this movie's biggest ally is that it stands alone. This is an on-ramp for new MCU fans, which is something we haven't gotten since, I'd say, Guardians of the Galaxy 1. For acting, this movie gets an easy 10 out of 10. Everyone did a brilliant job, regardless of who you believe is miscast. Everyone did such a good job at embodying their characters. Visuals get an 8.5 out of 10. Some of the shots were spotty, and I'm sure I'll notice more on a rewatch. But if the whole movie could have looked half as good as half the shots in the movie, it would have been one of the greatest looking movies of all time, and certainly the best of all the MCU. And last but certainly not least is action, which I'll give an 8 out of 10. When we got action scenes, it was great, but there were really only 2. Now, this movie is less than 2 hours long, including credits. So it's not like this movie demands 3+ action scenes, but maybe making the fight against Galactus more complex would have bumped it up. It's still great though. Overall, this movie's a 9 out of 10. Can't believe I finally get to say this, but this movie is fantastic. Guys, if you managed to make it to the end of the video, I cannot express how much I appreciate it. If you enjoyed, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe so I can get an invite to the Avengers Doomsday Red Carpet. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, take care.